I do have a bit of a surprise topic. It kind of came up today. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like talk about it, but it came out of nowhere. You might have saw this tweet. There's a tweet from B-Bats. I think it's important to talk about the role of class in Smash. Getting good and getting ranked is not just a representation of having a skill or talent, but also class and resources. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially he's talking about like those who obviously have the money and the resources to do so. This is a very expensive hobby. You're not going to get ranked unless you have the ability to travel and the means to compete and go out to like your locals and such, or your TOs can afford to put on those kind of tournaments. And at the end of it, he talks about potentially including like online events for Melee. Obviously for Ultimate, that's a very different scenario, and I don't think a lot of people would agree with that. But this is that's mainly on the Melee side. I'm not going to get into the Melee side because I'm going to be honest, I'm not so in tune that's have like the top 30, 40 for Melee these days. I'm not going to really talk about the rank there, but I want to kind of talk about how this is kind of seen in Ultimate scene due to its globality. And because it's such a global game, there's also scenes who can't really afford to travel as much. They have talented players, and that, yeah, obviously this is true. Also, first and foremost, before I really get into it, I saw a lot of people like quote tweeting this or like in the subreddit being like, hey, this isn't really saying anything. I already know what this is coming from. But like, there's people who don't. If you already understand what the purpose of this tweet's for, the tweet's not for you. It's very much for someone else. You don't have to be like a dick about it. But yeah, especially in Ultimate, there's really good players in like Central America. I mean, we see it with Shiny Mark, who's a player who could be ranked top 10, but isn't able to be due to just not being able to get out to a lot of events. And then you have players who just like have shown potential in South America, where like we could see someone from like Toon from Chile or Castle, or Peru players like Pollo and can't remember others off the top of my name right now, or Six from Venezuela, like players who are the best in their region and have proven to be the best in that region by a pretty dominant stance, but just aren't able to leave and showcase their talents. Or maybe they've taken wins off of players who've come to their tournaments. Like Toon, I'm pretty sure, has a win on Chag and Big Boss. Wolfen beat MVT. Yeah, like there's talented players in not just Central and South America, but like the Middle East or Oceania that don't get the ability to compete against the other level of talent. And because of that globality of the game, you have players who just aren't gonna get ranked or showcase their skill. And why I want to say this is because at the end of the day, I think there's a misinterpretation of what the player rankings are. They're not going to be giving you a determined factor of who is the most skilled player. It's going to tell you who are the players who did the best this season. You can argue skill all you want, because I think telling you who's the best skilled player is subjective as hell, and mainly more so a pride thing than anything. But the rankings aren't going to tell you that. That is not the purpose of what they are, and there's no actual tangible way of determining the most skilled players. It's going to just tell you, hey, these are the players who went to the events and did the best in the season. I would love if we got to the point back to like the Smash World Tour days where players were attending every event, no matter across the globe, but it costs money, it costs time, and people don't have that so feasibly, whether they're from not main country of Smash or whether they're from even the States. Even some of the like smaller state scenes just don't have the opportunities because they either don't host majors, or like they don't have the infrastructure to do so, or it's tough for them to travel, or they're in a place that isn't a desirable place to go to. And we'll go into that a bit later in the next topic, but it's tough. It's really tough. And when you give someone the resources and the ability to play against the best players in the world and the locals that have top 10 potential players going, multiple of them, obviously you're getting more resources to get better. That's always going to be a part of just the global economics of the world, and LumiRank can't fix that. Yeah, the trade war didn't fix the rail system. Like, we can't really do anything about it. We can't bribe the US government to make a full rail system. I think at the end of the day, and I'll link this tweet down in the description of if I make this a YouTube video, if you want to read the full thing. I think there needs to be a complete reinterpretation of what the rankings actually are in terms of a lot of people's minds, and like why, like, you're not gonna get the most skilled player. That's just never gonna happen. No ranking system, I think, ever does that. It just gets you people who show up to tournaments and compete. People can show up every once in a while or get their small opportunities and do well and show that they're skilled players, but they're not ever going to be ranked high, unfortunately, just because those opportunities aren't there. And that's just kind of life. I can't, like, that is just, it's not a Smash specific thing. This is just life in a nutshell. The people who have the most resources and are given those opportunities multiple times and have the ability to do so are the ones who are going to succeed. That's just how it is.